Hi, welcome back to the channel. My name is Cynthia. Thank you for being here. Today's reading is going to be the first quarter moon financial and business layout that I just recently started. Last month was the first month, and I'm going to do this indefinitely. Hopefully it'll be a fixture. But I've also kind of learned with this type of work, because some of it is intuitive, I'm also wanting to follow a different leader in terms of intuition versus like maybe like an imposed discipline that feels arbitrary at times if we're speaking about an intuitive process, right? So yesterday was actually the first quarter moon, and I had the day off, but I had so many things to catch up on. And I wasn't really feeling in the energy, so I thought just set your intention that you'll do the reading tomorrow and it's just fine. And then the other thing that came through was, yesterday the first quarter moon was in Capricorn, and today it's in Sagittarius. And so the other feeling that kept coming through for me as I was getting ready to knowing I was going to be doing this reading this week, was this feeling of like not quite being up to snuff yet. And it's particularly around this deck. This is a deck that was designed by this kind of, and here just one of my candles went out, right? So this is the kind of energy. So this deck is designed by this very smart kind of brainiac guy that really put a lot of research and time into this deck. And he intended it for financial and business readings. And it's very well designed. It's an amazing deck. And so for whatever reason this week leading up to this reading, I've been feeling uneasy about the fact that I'm going to sit down and do this reading and still have to refer to the guide in front of you all, because I don't know the deck. I'm just learning it. I just ordered it especially for these readings. But to now sit down and have to unfold this guide and be finding my way through the guide, it's like, you look like an amateur, right? Like, why are people in business going to want to listen to your readings if you're like, don't know how to use the deck you're working with? So I kept having all these worries about that. And then this morning it started sinking in, like, that's the energy. That's the energy that's in play here. Is a feeling of like, okay, I may have gotten here on looks and flash and good intent, but now it's time to really show up and perform. And I was feeling nervous about it because I'm learning this deck. And so what I think is going on is that that's what's happening in this collective, is that you may be in a position all of a sudden in your business and work life where you're having to perform for real. Like, you can't just phone it in. You can't cruise in at 5 minutes before the meeting and nail it or whatever, right? Like, this is different. There's something about the energy that's different. And the collective doesn't quite feel up for it. Or like maybe they're feeling imposter syndrome or just nervous about showing up for it. And so then the other thing that is going to be in play here, because as I was thinking about that this morning, a story came through for me that was the beginning of my professional life. This was beyond work at this time, that was just to get by, like cleaning. I was a housekeeper, right? I was a dishwasher. I did a lot of just whatever jobs you do when you're a young person, and maybe ongoing. Like, I was a housekeeper not long ago for a while, just because I like the physical work. I don't like front of the house, dealing with the public type stuff. It's too bad how exploited housekeepers are. I'll just say that. Tip your housekeeper, please. We have to clean up after all of the secrets that you want to keep hidden from the rest of the world, and you don't tip us enough for the kind of shit we have to clean up. And I think that Diddy's a great example, okay? People had to clean him up after that kind of thing. And I read, there's another Vice anonymous Vice testimony video out there that I watched recently from a hotel manager who was kind of reporting anonymously on these very wealthy parties in the hotel industry, from the entertainment and elite industry, like not just entertainers, but the world controllers, right? And he was like, there's no difference in wealthy hotels versus poor hotels. Our housekeepers would average maybe after a huge party, like $20 in tips. And they're cleaning up like semen on the walls, feces. I've been there 100%. I've cleaned up that kind of shit after people. So tip your fucking housekeeper if you're going to live like that on the quiet. Anyways, so I don't know why I'm off on that tangent, but it's a similar kind of energy, right? Like when I was getting my start professionally out and graduating from just working grunt jobs to like, this is now my first job out of having gotten my bachelor's degree. So I had the privilege to go to college, and I was just getting my first job, and I spoke Spanish. That was like the one marketable skill I had from my bachelor's degree, was that I speak Spanish. And I wanted to be of service. That's been my whole thing. Like, I was born with a calling to like serve the community. And so my route in was to the AmeriCorps program, which, if you know about that, it was started under the Clinton administration. It was a domestic Peace Corps, was the idea, was where people can get college tuition, sort of like the GI Bill, but for doing non-war time, like not war involved service, but, you know, a humanitarian service. And so I got hired into the schools through AmeriCorps because I spoke Spanish, and I worked for AmeriCorps for 2 years in the ESL programs in schools, helping support young students who were entering the school system but didn't speak English yet, right? So this is my big break. I know this is a long story, but this was my break. It's what I was hoping for. I secured it. I was really proud of myself. And I was ready. My intentions were pure. My heart was in the right place. My skills were basically on point with my Spanish speaking. So I was ready. I felt really, really excited for the opportunity. Well, there was this whole other part of me that was still partying, right? Like, I went to Evergreen State College, which is a drug college, right? There's a lot of drug experimentation and partying that goes on at that school, like a lot of colleges. I was a partier. I grew up partying. I grew up and ran with the fast crowd in high school. I just partied. That's who I was. It didn't mean I wasn't sincere about the things I believed in, but I partied too. And so in my very early 20s, I get this job with AmeriCorps, and here comes my first day. It's like one of the first days of school as well, not just my first day in my position, but everybody's going back to school. So this is the first time that I really have to show up, like my new professional, committed, reliable self, right? Not just phone it in student, cruise through jobs that don't ask a lot of you. Now this is time to step up. Well, what did I do? I fucking partied, like for a week leading up to it, because I was happy, and that's what I did. I partied. And so I partied including the night before, because in my past, that's what I would do. It didn't matter. I could go to class hungover. I could write papers kind of stoned, or, you know, I mean, I could cruise by as a student and party, and it wasn't a thing. But in this new life, working with kids, showing up on a school schedule, all that stuff was like a whole new, that's not how I could do anymore, right? So I overslept my first day. I was hungover. I also just, if we're real talk here, I had done a bunch of coke, and I'm not somebody who was like, oh yeah, I just in and out of life throughout, I do coke. Like, it was this one isolated time in my life where I was living it up and doing coke and living with people that did coke, right? So it was a kind of not good. Like, you don't want to go into a school like that. And when I woke up, it's like it all came crashing in instantly, how fucked up that was. What was I thinking? I'm going to be working with vulnerable kids, and here I am hungover. I probably stink, right? I probably smell like alcohol. I was mortified, but I threw my clothes on. I didn't even turn my lights on. That's how, like, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, because I knew this was serious and that I potentially just blew my opportunity. So I get to the school, I run in, I'm in there, I'm apologizing to my new boss. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I overslept. I was nervous last night and I couldn't sleep, right, which was a lie. And she's just looking at me like, and I'm thinking, oh God, I must not look very good, right? Because she's looking at me like she can tell that something isn't right with me. And one, you know, just a look said it all. And I was instantly like, oh God, like just had a sinking feeling. And she was like, that's all right. And then she just turned and went back to something. So I was like, I'm going to use the bathroom. And she goes, I think that's a good idea. And I'm like, oh God, I must look really bad. So I go into the bathroom. I'm wearing a shirt that's got a huge stain on it. My hair's a fucking like, I just should not have. I had no business being there in that state. So that is my story of shame. Luckily, it got through to me, and I was like, never again. This is your one chance to come back from this. Never do this again. There was a before in your life where you could party and go to class and you could live in both worlds. That is not the case now. You're working with kids. It's time to get serious. And I did. I listened, and I never, ever, ever did that again. So that's the feeling of this energy from Capricorn into Sagittarius. This collective is feeling like people are worried that I'm not going to be able to perform, and I really need to show up, and there might be some anxiety, like you might have already made a mistake like I did, and you're being looked at in a pretty scrutinized way at this point, and now you really have to perform in this meeting and make up for something like that. Okay, that's the energy, and it makes sense. Capricorn is devil energy in the tarot, and now Sagittarius is fire sign. So that's like burning the candle at both ends, wanting to have all of it, party and have the recognition and have the acclaim. Well, you can't, especially as you get older and your body can't keep up anymore. You need to at some point buckle down if you're serious about your work, right? It doesn't have to be professionally like in capitalism. It's in anything, in art, right? Like, you can make art when you're high all the time, but your body can't sustain itself like that. So you better learn how to make art, not relying on being high, right? That's another example. So thanks for listening to my long-winded Coke bender story from my young days. But that's also just to illustrate, like, people who've never been down this road, give people who have a break, okay? There's reasons why we are not alone. From the dawn of time, humans have been wanting to alter their consciousness and experiment and have fun in that way. It doesn't mean we're bad people. Do I live like that anymore? Not really. I mean, I still have my little vices. But would I be staying up all night doing coke and going into my job anymore? No, of course not. So, but sometimes people find themselves there because of addiction. So I guess maybe I tell this story just to lighten everybody up. Like, these things happen. It's okay. If you went on a bender, don't beat yourself up too much. You know, millions of people live like this. It's okay. We're not terrible people. We're just doing our best to find some joy in life in some crazy ass times, right? Do you want to bring everyone else down around you though? No, of course not. So let's see what this reading has to say. Now that the bender's over, maybe you've got to kind of show up now and make up for coasting a little while because you were partying or something. What's going to be important for us to understand about our work and our material abundance right now with this kind of hungover energy? It's like the hangover, right? Only it's not a wedding, it's a professional, maybe you're on a business trip. I don't know. There's something about it that's really making me laugh. So it's that kind of energy, like, oh my God, I should never have gone out last night and now I have to do this presentation. A lot of people, especially probably people in this collective, you know, if you know, you know, you've been there. You've lived like that. You've had to do it. If you're on the straight and narrow and you've had to make up for people like us, I'm sorry. You know? But if you ever need somebody to bail you out of jail, call us, right? You need a friend like that. So what's going to be important for you to know in business right now? So you're in a beginning stage here, it looks like, with this ace card. You've got two aces. So it's early in a process. And that might be you. Like, another word that came through for me as I was getting ready to do the reading is sophomore. So that's that kind of energy where you've cruised in on the success, but now it's really time to show up. You can't coast on the previous success anymore. You've got to produce again. And not only that, but the pressure's on. You've got to produce even better. So that's where this kind of energy is coming from. And this is where I need to kind of pull out the guide now for this deck because I'm learning it. And these symbols all mean something. Gosh, I see what I mean? Like, here I am. I'm right in the same boat as you all because I just had the guide and now it's gone. I don't understand what happened to the guide. I just had it. Where did it go? So this is you being embarrassed because you forgot something to do with your slide presentation that was due today, right? So we're in it together. We're going to get through this energy together. So what's important for you to know about your current work and business endeavors, that there are two really early ace pure form energies here of realistic thinking. That's here twice with these spades cards. It's achievement, idealism, and realistic thinking. Those are really important to be aware of right now. So it's kind of you may have come back down to earth, like it's time to get practical, like we were just talking about, right? Like the cruising through and phoning it in and coasting right now is that period of time that you were in as a business or a group or an entrepreneur is over. It's time to kind of buckle down again and get realistic about your thinking. What else? There's also a need to do a little bit of damage control here, like we were just saying. So I had to do damage control that morning. Showing up to a school looking like I did, the woman who hired me had serious doubts in that moment. It was written all over her face. She was like, my God, did I make a huge mistake hiring this kid? Because I was, I'm sure 21. And so I knew, I was like, I need to do damage control. Not only do I need to get serious myself, but I'm going to need to do some damage control because it was written all over her face. And so I did some work. Then I went home. I just said, I'm not feeling well. I think maybe I should go home, but I promise I'm going to come back fresh tomorrow. And again, she was like, that's a good idea. And so I didn't alleviate it all right away. I had to work for a good 3 months before she could really see, like, all right, she is serious. Whatever that was about, there's not been a recurrence. So she started to trust me, right? So you are recognizing that you need to do some damage control, make some peace and fix some things and be realistic about it. Also, there's a predominant feeling of being creative. This is a creative project for you. And so again, like me getting that position with AmeriCorps, I didn't take it lightly. I was ecstatic. I knew that it was an amazing opportunity to create the life that I ultimately wanted to build for myself of being in service. I just was immature. I handled it poorly beforehand because I was operating in an old paradigm. Part of this business for you is a new paradigm and you're aware of that. But like me, you may have tried to impose you may have tried to apply an old model, for example, and now you are having to do the damage control. It doesn't have to be like me, where mine was partying, trying to have all of it, party plus work plus get recognition, right? Like some people can do that, but at my at my time and in my place at that time, I could not. I needed to buckle down, as it should be. I should not be coked up working in a school, right? So it's important, and you have recognized that there's something serious about you needing to make a repair because it's something that's truly valuable to you. It's a creative passion of yours. So heed that warning about needing it to get serious and do some damage control. It's still early in the process, so you can fix it. It's not irreparable. It's not like you're 10 years in where you've got all these people relying on you and now you're doing this, right? Like this is still early. You can still turn this around. So just do the damage control that you need and fit it in your situation wherever it fits in your work and professional and creative life as an entrepreneur. I'm not going to go in and try to parse out all of the players and the details, right? This is just the overview of your project, creatively or business-wise, financially, right? All right. So now, what are some questions that can help you with this? Because you've recognized I need to do some damage control. I need to make some changes. There's still time. It's still early in the situation. It's something that's very important to you, so it's worth it. You need to be willing to make the change, right? What's important? What else is important? What are some questions that can help you get to the answers that you need? to ask yourself some open questions that can help you sort through how can you do the damage control here. Gosh, that is so crazy. Out of this entire deck, here's this card again. Talk about a time when breaking news interrupted your day. This was in the last reading. That is so wild to me because these are a lot of cards. There's a lot of cards in this endgame. I can't believe out of all these cards that showed up again. So it's interesting because this is a collective reading based on the first quarter moon. What new things are on the horizon right now that have, like, what is the breaking news? What are the new developments? So that's part of the equation here, is that you are not in the same paradigm that you were. So it's important to be asking, like, what it is about the emerging, shifting things that are requiring a different approach for me? What are the new qualities that need a different approach? That's going to be how you do the damage control, is responding to what's actually in front of you, not the old paradigm. So I was still living in the old paradigm, like I was still going to class. That's not what I was doing. I was now showing up in a school, in an elementary school with vulnerable youth. It's not the same. It's not the same world, you know, like I needed to show up entirely differently, but I was immature and I didn't know that yet. That was my sophomore moment. So now that you are aware that you're not in the same playing field, you're not in the same paradigm, think about that. Like, what does the new paradigm require? What else? How does culture fit in, right? So we were talking about Diddy a minute ago. Where does abuses of power fit into play, right? Power plays might be important. That's been a big, you know, we're facing an election in the US where power is a huge theme. Like somebody who is accused of and seems to want to have a dictatorship, right? Versus a democracy, but really, you know, it's a democracy that's not for the people anymore. It's a capitalist democracy that is enslaved to capital. Okay, sorry. What else? Complete the sentence. I wish I had someone with whom I could share. So who can help you? Who has knowledge that you can do consultation work with to help you show up in a different way? So it might be that you are also, I could see this playing out in like, you are doing a career change and you're working with an entirely different group of people. For example, let's say you became a nurse, but you're a masculine person. Nursing is a woman-dominated field, one of the few. That's changed a lot recently, but you know, in the past, you might have been in construction where you were surrounded by men who didn't venture very far outside of traditional masculinity, and now all of a sudden you're working as a nurse surrounded by women, right? It's something like that. So it is a major paradigm shift. And who can help you? Because you may feel like you're a little bit blind right now about how to do the damage control that you need to do. And it's going to be wise to ask someone, who can I share this with that can help me? I'm going to pull one more of these. Tell about a mistake you have recently made. Well, that's what we already talked about. You're already aware that you've made a couple mistakes and you're in a mode of needing to do damage control. What else? So you need to review the mistake. Debrief, right? Debrief everything that went down. If there's other people that were involved, include them in the debrief. Talk about how it went wrong. What can you do differently? What do you need to understand about the new terrain that you're in, and who can help you find your way through mitigating the damage? Medicine of laughter. So that'll help to find some levity, help find the humor in the situation and help lighten it up a little bit. That can be of use. Breathe deeply and replenish yourself, rest. So it's important to recover from whatever damage has happened as well, and give yourself that opportunity and recovery time. Find the humor in it. Like I was saying a few minutes ago, it's early in the process. It's not too late to change course and fix things and acknowledge the mistake. I'm feeling intuitively like an acknowledgement of the mistake is really important. So let's say your actions harmed another player involved. You need to acknowledge it. You can't just quietly decide, I'm not going to do that anymore and move forward. You need to go make an amends as well. Something like that, right? One more. Clear the energy, clear the air, go make an amends, start cleaning up. That's all you have to do. Like, that's what I had to do in that situation. I had to go let my boss know, I'm going to come back fresh tomorrow. I think it's best if I go home and rest. I'm not feeling well. Because I mean, it, as embarrassing as it was, I was hungover. And so when I had to go try to get a hold of myself and first realize that I looked as terrible as I felt, I was throwing up in the bathroom. So I wasn't lying. I was not in a condition to be there. It was almost like, it was an affront to the opportunity I had been given, right? Does that mean I was a deplorable person? No, it means I made a big lapse in judgment the week leading up to starting this new job. I was partying too much. I was burning the candle at both ends. I was thinking I was bigger than the tasks that were before me. And it was incredibly humbling. And the smart thing for me to do in that moment was acknowledge it. And that's what it's saying here. You just have to acknowledge it now. If you don't acknowledge it and you keep pushing forward, what's something that's really important to you is not going to flourish. It's not going to succeed. But it's not too late. You have time to correct. What's going to be a way to do that? It's going to be talking to people that can help you understand how to make the correction, because you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes you need to involve people that have the knowledge, right? Again, in that job, I'll tell another story, because one of the things I was tasked with in that job was helping our students' parents feel comfortable engaging with the school system, because a lot of adult people, whether you're coming from outside the nation or born here, don't like engaging with the school system. They have their own traumatic memories of being in school or being ridiculed in school, and they don't want to be in school, and they don't feel comfortable in the school system. And particularly, most of our parents didn't speak English, and so they didn't feel comfortable. It was overwhelming to try to be keeping up with all the demands that a school system puts on, homework, family. So part of my role was engaging and helping families feel more comfortable and welcome to participate in the school system. And I don't remember why, now I don't even know why I'm off on that topic. Sorry. Maybe it'll come back to me. But this is, again, this energy. It's weird energy of trying to fix mistakes here. Oh, that's what it was. It was a cultural mistake I made, because I was being tasked with doing that. And so one of the ideas we had was to have just a family fun night for ESL families. One thing I did was open up a homework club. So it was just after school homework help. Kids could come and get help with their homework, because often their parents couldn't help because they didn't speak the language that their homework was in. And so we had this after school program. And we were going to have a fun event, like a family night, and wanting to invite family. And so in this culture where I live and where I've come up, potluck is, a no-brainer. Like, let's have a potluck. Schools are kind of strapped for funds to hold an event like this, right? So we decided, let's hold a potluck. Well, culturally, it was super inappropriate. Most of the families were Southeast Asian, and that was considered rude, that we would invite you to something and then ask you to bring food. We're supposed to be hosting you if we're inviting you. That was the cultural gap I wasn't understanding. And I had to make up for it. I had to go find out what I had done wrong and do it differently the next time. So it's that kind of thing. Like, I didn't have that information. I had to go and consult with one of our ESL teachers, Mrs. Vu, and find out. I asked her straight up, like, Mrs. Vu, why do you think no one came? I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. And she said, well, you shouldn't hold a potluck, because she just told me straight up. But she was also not so rude as to come and tell me directly. She waited for me, because that was also another difference. She waited for me to realize on my own and ask for help. So I know that's a lot of personal storytelling, but I'm trying to just go with that part of my style maybe is personal storytelling. I don't know. This is that energy again, like being a little bit uncertain about what's appropriate here to do. What's some good advice for you at this stage now? Aside from consulting with others to find out what you're missing, about how to best fix things. How to best fix things, please. We've got the horse and bluebell. Well, first off, we have the trout and lily of the valley in the reverse. A toxic element is in the way of your happiness. Consider that pollutants may be upsetting your balance and seek to remove them. So it sounds like that's going to be important. Is that some part of your approach from before or players involved need to be removed? It needs to change. It needs to go. It's not appropriate for the current. And in fact, it's toxic is what it's saying. So some sort of element that you're trying to introduce into this new creative endeavor is toxic and it needs to go. That's important. So figure out what that is. And if you're not sure what it is, that's where the consultation comes in. You need to be speaking to someone that does know. For me, that was Swan Vu in that scenario, right? And I was very lucky to have her to consult with. Sorry, I'm not good at reading Roman numerals after a certain point. Your yoke has grown heavy. Remember why you began on your journey. If the reason is worthy, continue pushing. Your efforts will make you stronger. So don't be discouraged. That's what's happening here, is that I kind of sense, and I sensed it in the beginning, is that you're beating yourself up about this a little bit, that you've made this mistake. And sometimes that happens if you have any kind of perfectionist streak, or if you're so passionate and believe so deeply in a project that you're starting, you feel there will be a part of you that feels like you already should know everything. Well, this is a sophomoric time, so just remember that. Nobody's above that. It's okay to still be learning. Don't beat yourself up, because at some point, the shame is not even helpful anymore, right? Like if you need to fix things and course correct and clean up and do some damage control, just wallowing in shame isn't productive. And it can, in fact, even make things worse, especially if people are kind of waiting for you to step up and fix things, and they see that all you're doing is withering, and, that doesn't inspire confidence, right? So this is what, feel it, know it, own it, that you made some mistakes, but it's really important also to free yourself of that. Laugh it off, find some humor in it. Self-deprecating humor is ideal, right? Because it helps you keep your feet on the ground. And then just know you have to move forward and remove some elements that don't work here by talking to the people who do know. It's okay that you don't know everything. That's important to remember also. Just find the ability to laugh at yourself, acknowledge your mistakes, maybe acknowledge that you got a little too far ahead of yourself or a little bit too overconfident, right? And just be willing to come back to the drawing board humbled and willing to recommit to being better. Just like that story, I was very humbled. I recommitted to my thing, which was, this is your dream. What are you doing? You're going to fuck everything up. You want entry into a world of service like this with people from all walks. That's what you've envisioned for yourself. And so I triple buckled down, maybe more than I would have had I not done that, right? So there's just, you can turn this into something positive, I guess. And that will do it for this reading. Thank you for your patience. And that's the theme too, is just remember we're all, you know, I'm not perfect yet. I'm still learning this Woodland Creatures deck as well. So why did I choose 2 decks that I don't work with very well in order to inspire confidence? It's just by being willing to admit, you know, like, hey, I'm learning these decks. I'm not perfect. I'm learning these decks. It's okay to be in a learning process. And people appreciate when you admit that you don't know everything. People often don't want to admit they don't know anything, and that they forget that it's appreciated when you're around humble people that are willing to admit it when they don't know something. It's refreshing. So I have to tell myself that too when I want to seem like a perfectionist around these card readings, is like, I don't have to be perfect. And, you know, maybe that helps the people in this collective recognize that they don't have to be perfect either. So I'll see you next month for the next month's first quarter moon reading. Thank you.